Hi everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel. Today an art journal tutorial and I'm featuring a whole lot of different stencil techniques, different ways to use your stencils all on one project. So I really didn't have an idea about what I wanted to create today. So I grabbed some supplies that I had on my desk. This is a rice paper from NinnysNapkins. Actually, it's a NinnysNapkins product. I love the black and white and I love the floral, and I thought, oh, that'll look lovely. Then I also grabbed this gel print that I had. I was really drawn to the purples and blues and aquas of the color. And this gel print, I was experimenting and I was gel printing on tissue paper. So once I kind of figure out where I want to put it, I'm just going to glue these all down with some matte medium. I wasn't happy with how much of the rice paper was showing through if I put the tissue paper on top. So I'm making sure that I put the rice paper on top for the most part. So I get those black flowers peeking through. Now, as often is the case, when you start an art journal page and you don't know where you're going to go, sometimes these initial layers lead the way in that they're going to give me the color scheme. They also give me the floral theme that I end up going with, but you won't see a whole lot of it other than adding some wonderful, wonderful texture, pattern, and just those layers that are just so critical to mixed media and art journaling. I put modeling paste through that Ripples stencil. And once it's dry, I'm taking some gesso and I'm just softening the edges. My paper, the Canson Mixed Media 9 by 12, I believe it is, I did not gesso it. So I want to put a coat of gesso before I colorize anything, and I'm also softening any of those hard edges. So putting modeling paste through a stencil is one of the techniques of how to use a stencil. Now I'm colorizing this background and I'm using the colors that were in that tissue paper gel print. I've got bright aqua, deep violet, Prussian blue, a little bit of turquoise, and I'm rubbing it in with my fingers, wet and wet and wet. And I can do that because these colors are next to each other on the color wheel, which means they're going to make another pleasing color if they blend together. After that, it sat for several days. I did not know what to do. I love the background, the colors, the texture. And today I decided, I need to get moving along. So I picked this Jungle Vines stencil and the Prussian blue because I wanted to add contrast. And I'm stenciling all over the entire page. Now I picked this one because that rice paper had some floral theme on it. And so I'm playing with the theme. So for my focal image, I'm going to use this daisy cluster stencil from the Crafter's Workshop. There's also one called Flower Frenzy that you could also use. And I am stenciling through this with the same colors that I have in the background, as well as quinacridone magenta. I use deep violet and bright aqua. And I'm just stenciling right over this. Basically, I'm stenciling to make a collage item. So number one use, you put modeling paste through a stencil. Number two, stencil with acrylic paint. Number three, make collage elements that you're going to cut out. Now I'm using the same colors and I'm taking some of the other colors and mixing it on top. So I got the bright aqua and then I put some of the deep violet on or the quinacridone magenta just to prevent the paint from being just flat and one tone. I want different variations of these colors. And I'm picking some of these daisies, different sizes. I don't know what I'm going to use. So once that's dry, what I'm doing is cutting it out, and I'm leaving that white border in. And the reason I'm leaving that white border in is because I want the contrast. My background's very dark, and I want these focal image daisies to stand out. So I am just leaving that white border on and cutting off the excess. And as I said, I don't know how many of these or what size of these that I want. So typically I end up with more than I need. And I'm throwing them on there, and I love, love, love how they look. So I cut out a few more different sizes, different colors, and then I grab my Through the Garden Gate sentiment pack, and I pick the one that says Down the Garden Path. It's a fairly large font, but don't worry, because no matter what size the PDF is, there are ways that you can resize it. You can shrink it. You can also blow it up so it fits. Now I'm bubble cutting around it, and then I decide I'm going to cut out the centers of the O's and the E's and the D's, and I'm using an X-Acto knife here with a cutting mat. It's easier to cut on the cutting mat than on a glass mat. So I highly recommend that, and don't skimp on sharp blades for your X-Acto knife. So now I'm playing with the composition, and this is just a matter of personal taste. I like it how it is right here with the sentiment in the middle. And you can just play with it, take pictures along the way. And I end up deciding to go with the flourish of flowers on the left-hand side and the sentiment on the right-hand side. I'm gluing everything down with my fluid matte medium. Now, I end up with one of my paints, which they're all acrylic, so they should be permanent because they are dry, smearing. So any of my white on the copy paper from the flowers and on the with the sentiment kind of got discolored a little bit. So I end up brightening the white around the flowers. In a little bit, I'll show you how I problem solve that situation and how I made the sentiment stand out a little bit better as well. Now, if something does reactivate like this, just keep changing your brush, washing your brush, and coming back. You can also take a baby wipe and wipe it down a little bit to get some of that off. Now, even though I had different colors in the flowers, I wanted a little bit more interest. So here is the fourth way I'm using the stencil. I am stamping through the stencil, and I picked a stencil. This is a Tim Holtz pack, and I'll list that and the stencil names in the affiliate links in the description box. But I chose a stamp that was very small to fit through. Now, you could have done this before you cut out the daisies, after you painted them, and it would have been probably easier. But this is, sometimes you don't know where you're going to end up. I also thought about stamping with white acrylic paint, and that would have looked quite nice as well. My initial plan here was to just put the text stamp on the bigger flowers, but I ended up putting it on all of them. I really loved the pattern and the interest that this gave my flowers. So I just find the right stencil, the right part of the stencil, put it back on, and stamp through the stencil. And I'm not looking for perfect stamping. I'm cutting off the excess. And in my composition, you'll notice that I had several of these daisies going off the page. That is very pleasing to the eye. So try to do that. You're also going to overlap them. Now I've grabbed my angle brush and I am shading the inside of the flowers. And again, this adds so much to your focal image. It just brings life into it. This technique that I use for shading is called floating acrylic, and I will put a link to the video where I teach this technique. Like there, that daisy just really came to life once I shaded it. So I'm going to go with the black, and actually I think I'm actually using Payne's Gray, which is a blue toned gray. It's dark, but not as harsh as black, but you can use black. It's a lot of these little finishing details that just really make the page go from okay to wow. So remember that I kind of got some smearing going on, and so the whites of the copy paper aren't so white. And with my shading and stamping, the white borders around the flowers wasn't quite as pristine, and it really was raw copy paper. So I grabbed this liner brush, and it's a long liner brush, and I'm using white paint that I use to splatter. So that's thinned down paint. And with the length of this liner brush, which is about 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch, it's really easy to outline around this flower. So look for this purpose, you want a liner brush that has a long brush. And I'll look in Amazon and see if I can find one just to show you. And I'm pushing down on it, and it's really effortless. It's the length of the brush that is making this so easy. Alternatively, you could use a white Posca pen and fill that in. I could have used my fine line applicator bottle as well. Now, the letters for the sentiment, the white around it got a little bit muddled again, and I want the black to stand out. So I'm darkening the black using my black Posca pen. I just want the sentiment to stand out. Then I do a little bit of doodling in the middle of the flowers. And then I stop myself from doing more doodling on the flowers with the black. Then I splattered with the white paint and my fan brush. Loving how this all came together. That background, oh, I will create that again. Keep that in the back of my mind. I'm just edging the page by shading it with black here, just to frame the page. Now I'm doing a little bit of shading on the outside of the flowers. Again, I want that focal image to pop, to stand out from the background. And there we have it. Look at that patterned, textured background. It's got the modeling paste there, so there's lots of texture, there's lots of pattern, there's lots of interest, lots of things to look at. Close-ups coming, you can see even a closer up view of the background and this project. Until next time, go get creative.